please. Okay, we've got a hand up the back there, Adrian.
On the whole slightly emotional idea that very, very expensive flats are being built in central London and somewhat dodgy money is coming from all over the world to be laundered through them. I don't know quite how big and whether it's really such a worry, but it just drives the market up. And so, is anything you've talked about actually going to affect any of that, or has it got a sort of life of its own, this whole thing?
You mean the sort of
it's
things like Nine Elms and...
Well,
so
I don't know what... I mean, it's just like you hear about large developments in central London and on the river, which are not only often empty, because people are just happy to have their money somewhere safe in other countries, and it's not really adding very much to anybody other than people who are doing the work, processing it or building it, but it's not actually helping London.
No, I was
I just wondered, in the London plan, does anything actually touch to dissuade that market or that whole incentive to do that?
Well, this is the buy to leave thing. This is, you know, the proper way of doing first dibs. Yeah. And it does leave it up to councils to do that. So if you've got
to everything rather would apply to every house, however, whether it's a £5 million penthouse or would apply to all these properties. This first dibs thing, if you can get it through.
Yeah, well, the thing about policies like that is the government won't let you do them unless you've got evidence to support it. And the Mayor did do a study of how many homes are being sold to overseas buyers and how many are not being lived in. And it is interesting. You know, they've probably looked at the research, and what they found is it is slightly confined to a few areas. Like in most of London, there's a bit of that goes on. Most people, though, are buy-to-let people. So there are people living in the homes, but at full market rates, which is not ideal. So by pushing up the amount of affordable housing in each development, we take away some of those flats. We make, you know, they're just not going to be bought by buy-to-let people. The buy-to-leave thing, though, it does concentrate around particular areas, and they are particular areas where the Mayor has a say. So Nine Elms, which is the area around the embassy, and also like right along that sort of embankment, the Albert embankment as well. Those areas are particularly rife for this. Like almost all the flats are like £1 million trophy flats, and not the sort of place you'd even want to live, really. You know what I mean? And that depends on the people running that particular area, keeping an eye on it. And it's an opportunity area, so the Mayor has quite a lot of say. The other areas are housing zones, where you do have, I mean, Lambeth has a housing zone that's kind of the whole of Lambeth. It's like not a zone as such, and that's where a lot of the funding is coming from for the ones that are on next to TfL. I'm pointing at you because I think you know. The estates that are next to the TfL lads, Fenwick Estate. Yeah. That's getting money from the housing zone, and there the Mayor has a say as well. So that's the sort of place where you might employ those conditions. But it's a bit scrappy and a bit messy. There isn't really a London-wide rule you could bring in because the government would stamp on it. So you've got to be a bit clever about justifying it in particular areas where it is a problem. But the study helps you to do that. At least the study's there, so you can go, look, actually, this bit does have a problem.
Another question. Anybody else? We've got a couple here. Let's go for this lady here. Sorry, don't know your name.
It's all right, I'm Ryan. So we're from the Ealing side, Green Party.
Hello.
Hi. We was interested just what you said about best social value for development. We've got this issue around this area called Warren Farm, and the council are saying that there is social. So they want Queen's Park Rangers to build their school, their football school on their academy, and they say that it's bringing social value because there'll be football fields, and but it's not going to be like that. So how do you then say, well, you're saying it's social value, but we don't think it is?
So they're arguing that because QPR's academy is there needs to be less social housing, or less affordable housing, because you're getting this other thing.
Right.
Is that right? Is that what they're doing?
I mean, basically.
What's the problem with the development?
Well, it's for a start, they've sold it at a very low price to Queen's Park Rangers.
Right.
Like a Premier League football team should be able to afford much more for what they're buying.
Yeah.
But
200 grand a week for a
yeah,
player. So
yeah.
why not?
Also, it's public land. It's land that's being used by the people of Ealing. Everything from model aeroplanes to local football teams, it's going to be taken away
Okay.
and then given back to us.
So you want to
Yeah.
stop the development, it's not about
quite
affordable
housing.
housing.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you get back to me on email about this, please?
Sorry, I was just the social value thing.
Because I don't want to do casework on a
sorry.
planning application that isn't housing related.
Sorry,
in
no,
the
it's just
meeting.
the social value
Yeah.
aspect of it.
No, but I mean, I do get this. There's a community centre that the council are developing in my ward in Camden, where there's no affordable housing at all. And they say there can't be any because they need to spend the money on the community centre. But there already is a community centre. All they're doing is re-providing approximately the same amount of community space, and we get no social housing. So we're kind of against that. We want refurbishment. And if you refurbish the community centre, you can put some affordable housing next to it as well. So that's dodgy, and I think it needs to be clearer that you can't offset benefits like that against affordable housing. Everything needs to provide affordable housing. That's the bottom line, and that's the sort of thing. If you're, the whole thing is, if you're strict about how much affordable housing you want and the definition of affordable housing, and you say, look, this is my bottom line, you're not getting planning permission if you don't. People build it in to what they pay for the land. The deputy mayor's admitted it to us. There's a twin track thing that they're doing at the moment with respect to viability, and they're saying to developers at the moment, if you can do 35% properly affordable housing, then you don't need to disclose your viability assessments. But if you don't get 35%, then you have to disclose everything. And since this started to be applied by the mayor to the major applications, amazing how easy it is to do 35% affordable housing. They're all doing it. And the deputy mayor said to us at the housing committee, oh, well, they're building it in. We talked to them about how they're managing to do this, and they said they're building it into the price of the land. Now, that suggests to me, A, that 35% is potentially too low if they're finding it that easy to do, and B, if we keep pushing and pushing, if we do set a bottom line for planning policy, then the developers do adapt, and it just comes off the profits of the people who are sitting on land. And that's the kind of profits that they don't represent any work. They're quite illegitimate, speculative profits, so why not do something about those and get more affordable housing in the process? So I think we're onto something there. He's given it away about capitalism, in my view.
There is a question over by the door.
I just wanted to say, like we were talking about reproviding things that are not necessary. There's an example at Stockwell Green, where there's a very big development done, and the developer provided a doctor's surgery, which was not required. And all that happened was they left it a couple of years, and then they said they couldn't market it as a doctor's surgery because nobody, there was nobody willing to take it on. The CCG didn't want it or whatever, so they just got permission to turn it into residential again. So it's just cynical.
Did you get any affordable housing on that development?
Sorry?
Did you get extra affordable housing when they did that? There was no
I wouldn't
condition.
know about that. I mean, the main development was something like 200 or 300 flats, and this surgery is on the other side. It's actually Lingham Street,
Right.
if anybody knows the street. So they demolished a very nice gay pub to provide a doctor's surgery, and it's now residential flats.
See, that's the sort of thing we need to be protecting our existing facilities.
I don't know
Becca,
if
you
went
had
to
a-
Lambeth planning, or if you go mad.
Sounds like a poor planning.
So we'll go with Becca and then the gentleman sitting also by the door.
My question's about co-housing. There's,
Co-housing.
yeah, you mentioned community land trust. I just wondered if it came up, and I can say more if people know what that is, but did it come up?
Yes, co-housing. I love co-housing.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that I didn't mention actually, which is to do with the demand for larger homes. So family homes are really needed. But if you actually look at the overcrowding statistics, there's an awful lot of people living in family homes who are under-occupying them. And they tend to be older people. So I've got to write a blog about this at some point, but the stats for each age show that basically all younger people are overcrowded, no matter what tenure you're in. And then as you go older, within social housing not so much, but within private rented housing a bit, and then within owner occupation, huge amounts of under occupation from older people.
There seems to be some
And that's a real
social benefit
opportunity.
from having co-housing.
Yeah.
I would have thought there was
Yeah.
a borough-wide interest in having it.
So co-housing is where people live in slightly more of a community. It's not a commune,
No.
but you have your own flat, but you might not have spare room, and you might have quite smaller sort of living rooms and things. And then you'll have shared communal areas for socialising, for guests and things like that, and a nice garden. There is one successful older lady, it's called Older Women's Co-Housing Out, and they found some land. They spent 14 years trying. They got some land in Barnet, and they built there what they wanted, and it's so nice. When they were on the BBC showing this off, they had 400 people instantly email them saying, how can I do this? And the demand for that is huge. And if we just gave people more opportunities, there are people out there who've got big homes that are worth far too much money because the housing market's overheated, who could sell and build and
Where
want to
it's
do
come up
that.
in Lambeth is there are a lot of people who've had quite low rents and then coming up to retirement and now getting, their landlords are hiking up their rents and they're looking to how they're going to survive on their retirement.
Yeah, no, I mean, the point about the funding it through owner-occupiers is just that they actually, even within that business model, and I know a group who are making plans and looking for a site in Camden, within that model, they can provide affordable rented homes alongside the ones that are owner-occupied. It's like the most wonderful mixed development, and that's what they want. So, yeah, why shouldn't we be encouraging more of that? There's not much in the plans to encourage that, but like I say, planning permission is more to do with the physicalness of it, not so much how you live. There are good things that say about sort of shared living and sort of giving you discounts on the space that you allow for each flat if you're going to do communal space. But it's quite experimental policy at the moment. But it does mean you can argue for something like that.
Okay, and I think you had a question.
Yeah, my name's Alex. I'm from the housing officer for Lambeth and Southwark. We're going to have a meeting at the end of this month, and we're trying to bring a coalition of all the housing groups and to launch a campaign in the local council election. I have a question on your presentation. You talked about demolition. I noticed I used to work for the council in the housing department, so I know the tricks they used to do is change the tenancies. And is there any guarantees that you keep the same tenancy rights? Because I know sometimes they lower the tenancy rights and you have less tenancy.
This is not what's not super clear. So no, there isn't. I'm trying to find these bits about the different ways he says rents. But where he says at the same or similar rents, he never says and tenancy terms, and he needs to. So that needs to be put into this. We need to be responding to the consultation to say that. Because we've got an issue if people are being moved on to short haul tenancies or 5-year tenancies and things. Yeah, if you've got a secure tenancy, you should be keeping that, and it should say so.
On Preston, because they're moving the social housing into the Homes for Lambeth, which is a private entity. That whole sort of issue has come about because you can't actually have a secure tenancy in this private company. So they'd have to. I mean, if it was the mayor's requirement to actually keep secure tenancies, then they wouldn't be able to do with private companies. That would.
Or the private company would have to have the council as registered housing provider providing the. There are ways to do it. I mean, the council will stay as a registered housing provider, so there's no reason why they couldn't run the homes that are.
It's kind of sort of understood that they can't do that. So I don't know how they would resolve it.
I don't know. I mean, that's often what a private developer will do when it has to provide affordable housing. It will bring in a housing association to run those flats for it. So why Homes for Lambeth couldn't do that to the council? The council are maintaining quite a lot of social tenancies for quite a while. I would have thought they're not putting all your social tenancies into Homes for Lambeth. Or are they?
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
But they're saying they're not changing everyone from secure tenancies if they're saying that.
They are, on Preston they are. They're calling them homes at council rent.
I know, no.
Council
But if
homes.
they're not demolishing you and moving in, if you're staying in exactly the same flat,
No one on person.
they're not moving, no, not pressing
You mean
elsewhere
just
in
general?
Lambeth.
I don't know how they're doing.
We'll need to look at the detail of that, but it seems like there would be ways of.
I don't think they are changing.
No, in which case they could still rent tenants of Cressingham as the council.
There's something we have to do in the election campaign because this homes for Lambeth has to be stopped. That's our point of view. This is not going to happen. And we've really got to go into the election and really put those candidates. I'm a member of the Labour Party, and as far as I'm concerned, any Labour candidate that doesn't support abolishing getting rid of this plan, then we should be not voting.
Yeah. You need a solid alternative plan that points to, because the way they'll try and argue against it is say, oh, it's the only way to get more council homes.
It's illegal.
And if you're against it, you're against council homes. So,
Exactly.
you need a solid alternative plan that produces new council homes, and that's what you can do. It's possible.
So we've got a question for Rashid, and then this gentleman sitting down here as well. Rashid first.
In your position down at the Mayor's office, we spoke about this before. The estate that I came off of, just around the corner from here, the Guinness Estate, it was 400 social homes. The developers, the landlords, along with the developers, demolished the estate. Lambeth Council gave a nod and a wink, and half the people on the estate was thrown out, and the other half got new flats. And then they rebuilt with 550 flats, and the extra flats, what they did, they're all affordable and part ownership. So basically, massive social re-engineering project. And they said that the project was a £100 million project. And Guinness were making all this noise and putting all these press statements. And then very quickly, problems started to arise on the estate. And one of the things was the pipes kept bursting, the main supply of water. So people went for 3 weeks without any running water. And so a lot of the residents came to me and they were saying, something's dodgy going on here, something's dodgy, something's not right, 100 mil, and there's all these problems. And so we spoke about a possible audit, because Lambeth were making a lot of noise how it was a wonderful project, Guinness were making a noise that it was a wonderful project, the developers were saying it was a wonderful project, but all the tenants were complaining that their rents have gone up and they were receiving less service. With 3 months to the election, it would be a mischievously brilliant plan. No one from the estate had the audacity to write a letter requesting an audit, but is it something that you could take on?
I don't know. See, I can't tell anyone in Lambeth anything about audits they don't already know, can I? Because the People's Audit was a magnificent job. The thing about that is, though, that is to do with your rights to look at councils' accounts. And Guinness is a big fat housing association.
But there was a lot of the mayor's money went into the project.
So the mayor's money went in. So that's a good question. We technically, I don't know the answer to that. But if there's any powers to look at I don't know if it's an audit's the right word, but if there's any powers to look at, where the money went and what was spent and what the quality was, then yes, let's liaise quickly, because I've got a deadline for asking mayors questions, not right now, but before Monday, to put in a question about that particular estate and see if there was GLA money in. Then we should ask, how is that being scrutinised? Also, just to get some hooks to find out what we might ask for next. Because I think the question is, what rights do we have to what information, and what documents are there out there? And once we know that, we can go hunting for them. So let's look into that. I don't know for sure right now. So, yeah.
And from the sofa.
Hi. Just a point that was raised over here a little while ago about Homes for Lambeth. All Homes for Lambeth properties, once an estate's been demolished, any existing council tenants, like myself, will have to veto their secure tenancies. And I think Lambeth is one of 3 other boroughs, I think Richmond, Southwark, and I can't remember the other one, where they've taken a particularly hard line approach to the Housing Act. where they are forcing existing council tenants, if they move back to their old estates, have to give up their secure tenancies. So that's how I've understood it for a long time.
But they're just people who've been moved out and moving back in. Because that, I think, yeah.
Yeah, if you're in an estate, so there's a woman I know who left. They're under pressure to give up their secure tenancies. They don't want them, so they're being really, the thumb screws are on very, very tight. So a woman who lived on Clapham Park, she refused to give up her secure tenancy, and she was moved to Cressingham Gardens. And now Cressingham, so she kept her secure tenancy. But also another thing which is particularly toxic is that the tenants will have to bid for any existing empty council properties, and the pool of council properties are reducing constantly.
Yeah.
So the pressure is on for them to give up secure tenancies, and if they don't want to, which they legally can hold on to, then it's up to them to bid. You go to the top of the list, but you're still bidding.
Yeah.
So it's particularly toxic.
That's really good. So the alternatives they're given are move out to another council flat, we'll give you bidding points, and that way you can keep your tenancy. It's on an individual
but
level.
They will have to find the flat.
Yes.
Not Lambeth.
Go into the normal housing bidding process if you want to keep your secure tenancy, and if you want your right to return, you've got to give that up.
Yeah.
See, there shouldn't be that choice.
I should also stress, I know various people live on Cressingham, some good friends live there. I know there's been 2 suicides there in the last year, and it's all due to this evil scheme, which is why people like me, who were long-time Labour Party supporters, my great-grandparents and founding members, I would rather draw a razor blade across my throat than vote Labour anymore. I feel totally betrayed by them. I do feel I'm council tenant, so I feel it's very raw, Sian.
Yeah.
And Lambeth Labour is evil. They are really, really, really treacherous and cruel. So I do sound pissed off because I am.
Yeah.
But I've switched to Green, and I can see how Green has been very, very good on this.
Well, this is one of the things. This is the other social consequence of regen is the regen period.
Yeah.
It can go on for like a decade, during which not only are you putting in, because when people die or when people leave of their own accord, you have voids. The council for years fill those voids with people like temporary people on short tenancies. One of my estates in Camden is filling up with property guardians over time. That estate won't be finished till 2026. So that's a long period to have those council flats not operating as council flats. I've done added up the sums for Camden's regen programme, which isn't that extensive compared to Lambeth's. And there's 800 sort of household years of displacement built into it, and that's if it goes to plan. It's a lot, and that should be taken account of.
Yeah.
You can't just compare what's there now and what you end up with if there's 5 years in between during which people are horribly stressed.
Can I just share one tiny thing with everyone here? That I sat in with Central Hill's decision hearing last year, and Councillor Jim Dixon, my councillor, who was described by Tony Blair as being to the right of New Labour when he was head of Lambeth years ago, which is quite something. He was gurning like some idiot child, whilst a woman next to me was sobbing quietly because her house is going to be demolished. And I said to him, please stop gurning, Councillor Dixon. And he went like this, because I think he thinks anyone who opposes them are some sort of militant commie, or so what if they were anyway? But it's the fact that they find it so funny. I mean, it's how bankrupt. It's absolute contempt. And I'm surprised, I think most of us are in a state of shock, upset and anger. But I'm surprised there's not been, fights, or people are very, very civilised actually in these meetings. But it's unbelievable what you want.
I mean, I'm right next to Haringey, where there isn't a mature response from the people that are being argued with, and who are opposing their big joint venture, because a big joint venture isn't the only thing, and yet they make out like that it's that or nothing at all will happen, and it's really weird that they won't debate maturely about it. But I think we can, from our side, show the way by putting forward alternative plans that are well thought through, that will result in better things, and not, you know, not sink into their level really. So I don't call them evil, but they are very wrong.
I think they are actually.
I don't live in Lambeth.
Speak to Scott. He's sat into many of these. I mean, they're playing with people's lives, and they're doing it with a grin on their face, and they're making lots of money whilst they're enjoying jollies in Cannes. You know about that. I mean, that's astonishing that Lambeth civil servants are being flown to Cannes to asset strip and flog off to, got some footballer there as their token celebrity. I mean, it's jaw-dropping. My grandparents would be spinning in the graves if they knew the Labour Party had sunk this blood. Fake Labour. No, it is. I'll shut up now. I'm telling you your tag. I'm doing the bloody thing.
Is there anyone who... Is there anyone who hasn't yet asked a question or expressed an opinion who would like to? But I'll come back to you in a moment. But if anybody who's got a burning thing they want to say or ask... No? Okay, come back to you then.
It's really just... We've had discussions in the Unite branch, but also with Lambeth housing activists, and we're having this meeting, and we're thinking, and one of the issues, because I know, and I'm in the Labour Party, so don't you worry, there's things going on in the Labour Party, some of us are up to stuff to expose these traitors. They keep arguing that, we can't build more social housing because the government doesn't allow us to spend the money, and there's all these sorts of restrictions. And my argument to those councillors that come up with that same argument is, well, why don't you go with the other authorities and organise a national campaign and demand the government changes the rules and release the money that's our money, it's come out of council house sales. And the government's in a crisis. Yeah. And so this is the opportunity. So I think one of the things we're discussing in but we should put a demand. No, is you, the council, should go to the government and demand the money. Yeah. And if you did that, the whole of Lambeth would turn up. We'd shut down London. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the way, because I think they're using the legal arguments. And I think that's one. I'm just flagging it up because we're still thinking that we need to really nail that so we don't get dragged into legal. And no, it's not. It's about politics. And if you are representing our borough, you turn up, you go to the House of the Parliament, and you'll have 200,000 people surrounding you. So that's the one that I'm just raising that as one of the things we want to raise in the election.
With the HTV, the thing with that was they're rushing into this deal based on there not being an alternative, and yet there's politics happening all around us. Things are changing. So why? Once you've done it, you've done it. So why do it? Why not push and campaign to change the situation rather than accepting it? And why not do what you can within the current situation? Because there is plenty that can be done. I mean, other places are doing, infill schemes. They're not demolishing what you've got and signing up to these deals that leave you with no choice but to demolish the rest of what you've got. Places are hanging in there a bit more. I mean, that's Camden's policy now, is basically hang in there. And it was going to do a big joint venture, and they went, no, actually, we won't do that because politically that's difficult. And but you're right, these are political choices. They keep pretending that they're practical choices, but they are political choices, and that is something that people shouldn't forget, and that we can change. We can change the government, and we can even get the current government to change its mind if we put a strong enough campaign together.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I think we'll call that part of the evening to a gentle close. Thank you enormously, John, for coming.